It's now 5:30. I'll call the meeting to order. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight, and next item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. So I ask the commissioners if you've had a chance to review the agenda and have any modifications or changes to the agenda.
I have none.
I have none.
Okay, so then I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we adopt the agenda.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Appointments. The Planning Commission Board of Zoning Appeals has one expired term, and applications will be accepted until February 21st, 2020. So if anyone's interested in serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission, please fill out an application and get it turned in as soon as possible. If you do have any questions about the position, you can call City Hall and request to speak to Kelly, and she'll fill you in on the duties of serving on the Planning Commission. I believe the position is only for a resident located within the city limits. Is that correct, Kelly?
That's correct.
Okay, so thank you. The next item on the agenda is presentations, so I'll turn the meeting over to Chief Harrison, Dave.
Mayor, I would like to invite to come forward, please, Fire EMS Chief Sean Wallace, Paramedic Firefighter John Gates, Paramedic Firefighter Shacey Bowman, Firefighter EMT David Rowland, and Firefighter EMT Brian Bennett, please. Come forward. Jerry.
And I would like for Dispatcher Marissa Peck to come forward.
Could you guys kind of stand here and face the camera that way? And Mayor, I'm going to speak something as far as fire and mess, and then Jerry will speak for his employee here. It is an honor and a privilege to join you this evening as we collectively recognize a group of our fire EMS employees. It humbles me to share my thoughts because life is precious and our crews make differences every day in our citizens' lives. But the battle we fight during a cardiac arrest event statistically has the odds against us and is a fight that is often lost by our firefighter EMS personnel. On January 15th of 2020 at 12:17 a.m., our 911 center received a call from a wife whose husband had collapsed in cardiac arrest. This residence is south of Independence in the county and would take our EMS crews 11 minutes to arrive on scene. During this time, and Jerry will speak about this, with assistance of our 911 center, the wife performed CPR on her husband, who was down for 17 minutes in cardiac arrest. Our crews arrived and began advanced life support measures and defibrillated the gentleman, resulting in what we call ROSC, or return of a spontaneous circulation. I am here tonight to award our employees, but we also want to recognize a key individual here in a minute in this process that allowed our efforts to be successful. Let Jerry speak for a minute.
And the unsung heroes often of public safety are our dispatchers, the thin gold line that stands between chaos and order. Without them to receive the call, none of these things would be possible. And without the community support and supporting our use of emergency medical dispatch, these kind of things would be very difficult to achieve. So I'm here to recognize our dispatch center's contribution to this life-saving effort.
Chief Wallace.
Dan, if I could have you and your wife come forward. So like these gentlemen mentioned, this was a team effort. Dispatch, emergency workers, But the key to Dan's survival and the reason we're holding this ceremony tonight is his wife starting CPR and continuing until our arrival. And I would like to honor you tonight.
Mayor and Commissioners, could I have you, Mayor, I'd like to hand you these certificates, and I will call off the names here and let you present that to them. Firefighter EMT David Rowland. Firefighter EMT Brian Bennett. Fire EMS Chief Sean Wallace.
And Dispatcher Clerk Marissa Peck.
No. You're all right. Firefighter Paramedic Shacey Bowman. And the attending paramedic that night for this patient was firefighter John Gates.
I would hate to live through the experience, but really appreciate the dedication and the response that we were able to give. And you take it for granted when you go to work each day, and you take it for granted each morning we get up. None of us know what's ahead of us, and it's comforting to know that should it happen, we have dispatch that can give instructions, and that the response is on the way, that we can know that our family and our friends are taken care of, that they're in good hands, to see that immediate care can be given to get transported to a facility where more needed procedures can be taken. So thank you, each one of you. We really appreciate your service and your dedication to the city of Independence, and we're excited to see Dan here, and just hate to have to live through what your family did, but you know, we're excited to see you here and be part of the ceremony tonight. Thank you. hard not to get emotional after a ceremony like that, and particularly the Roths brought Kenny and Karma to my wife's daycare, so I've known them for years, and to hear the night of the event and the unknown, it's really exciting to be able to be part of the ceremony, to see the presentations be given, and to see Dan with us tonight. So, and we take things for granted too much. So we will return to the agenda. Next item on the agenda is consent agenda. We reviewed and approved the agenda, which included this. So at this time, I'll just entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
I move we accept the consent agenda.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is consider authorizing the mayor to sign an option to purchase real estate with Lee's Cooling and Heating for a tract of land in the West Laurel Industrial Park.
Mayor and Commissioners, this is a pretty exciting item because we have a local business that has plans to expand. They have a new owner, but they did not purchase the building they're in, and they have a year lease with that, but they would like an opportunity to expand that business in a location that would suit their needs. And so in your packet, you have an agreement for an option, which would be $2,000. And they would have 3 years to exercise the option. If they did not exercise it, then they would forfeit the $2,000. If not, then the purchase price will be $22,000.
Okay. Brian, would you like to share your plans? It's exciting to see a business grow.
You know, Lee's has been in the building that we've been in, I don't know. I know it's 15 years, somewhere thereabouts. The struggle we have is we only have one overhead door that we really can service through, and that's on the west side. The ones in the alley, we're constantly battling the dumpsters out there. We get damages to the vehicles. So when I get guys in the morning and have multiple crews running, they're fighting over one door, and it's hard to get in and out. And if we take a delivery, it just stops everything. So we started looking at different buildings around town and what would suit us. And we just drove around and started looking at existing buildings, and we just don't see a lot of overhead buildings with multiple overhead doors. And so then we had a discussion with Tricia Perdun and some other people, sit down with the city, and they gave us some options, and this one seemed like it was a feasible option to come in. I've had a conversation with Kane Construction about the price of a building, and just the shell. I mean, this is preliminary right now, and I know we have a lot of other stuff to look at. But this seems like it would fit our needs as far as the location. And like she said, I'm fortunate with the team we have that we have a lot of progressive people that want to see the business expand and just do a bigger template than what is just independence. So I have a pretty good team that's eager to do this as well, and to work towards achieving this and just moving forward. So Lee's has been here since 1950. We want to be here till 2050. So it's pretty exciting for us.
It is exciting to see it. I remember when it was on Main Street, and just see the vision that's been with the leadership of Lee's Heating and Cooling, and that continuing with you. We appreciate you making that commitment to the city and servicing the people in the region, going beyond just Independence, but reaching out to the other communities with your expertise. So we're excited and glad that you were able to find the property here, and we're willing to work with you to see your dream come true on it.
Okay, sounds good.
So
I'll let the guys know, and I'm sure you have to vote, don't you?
Yeah.
So,
You've seen the agreement, Brian?
yeah.
And you're satisfied with what is in it?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, we're ready to move on it. February and March is our slowest months, so we don't want to be, we don't want to put the cart in front of the horse. We want to get through that time and get back to getting busy, and we've done a lot of restructuring since this has just happened, and modernizing, and there's been a lot of work going on. So, so yeah, this summer we're looking to start gearing towards that way. So,
I'm particularly pleased to see that we have space that you can utilize within the West Laurel Industrial Park. That's why it's there. We really look at it as a win for the community that we are able to offer that and that you are able to utilize it.
yeah, I agree.
Sounds good to me. That small of an acreage, you were able to incorporate it into the plans of
Yeah,
what the
we're gonna-
building's going to be. So
Yeah, we're going to make sure and obviously follow the ADA to the front of the building for parking, and typically we send all our guys home in company vehicles, so the vast majority of what's going to be around the back of the building, if not pretty much all of it's going to be company-owned vehicles. So we'll look at maybe doing some gravel around the back for the overhead doors and help with some costs there, but we understand what we have to do on the front side with the hard surface and the parking and stuff like that. So obviously we have to get an architect involved and follow all the codes. So this is pretty preliminary, but we're pretty committed on doing it. So
good.
Great. If there's no further questions, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign an option to purchase real estate with the lease cooling and heating for attractive land in the West Laurel Industrial Park.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is to consider adopting an ordinance amending the qualifications for licensures of plumbers.
Mayor, the plumbing board has been considering for several months now, as did the electrical board, of improving their licensure and education. And technology is just increasing so much, and even in the plumbing field. I mean, they educated me, PECs and everything else that is changing in the field of making sure plumbers that are working in our community are up to date. And we sent it over to the city attorney, Jeff Chubb, and he actually went and pulled stuff out of the statute and modeled the ordinance after the statute so that we're in compliance with the state statute. And the plumbing board is asking that you approve this ordinance requiring, starting in 2021, 6 hours of continuing education for the plumbers to be licensed in the city of Independence.
And I asked Dave concerning the competency exam, how that fit into it. He explained the block.
Yeah. When a plumber initially gets all of his certifications, it used to be, way back when they educated me, you used to go up to the fire department and the fire chief gave you a test. And that's how you became licensed. But now it is all done through block tests, and you have to be sponsored, and you go to either typically Pittsburgh, Kansas, or Wichita or Kansas City, and you take these tests to become certified as a journeyman or a master plumber, and that's how you obtain your licenses. And then through Jeff's research, Kansas has specific CEUs. Each state can have different. They do transfer somewhat across state lines, but somewhat specific. Each of the states do in their statutes for the CEs that are required. And the ultimate goal is just to keep all of our plumbers and electricians up to date with the codes, what's changing, what's coming. We don't want to be up to the 2019 codes. We always are back a little bit because things are changing so much and allowing problems or things in the codes that change so rapidly to work themselves out. So, but these guys getting that information every year and staying up to date with what's coming down the pike is very important.
And it's not an effort to eliminate any of our existing licensed plumbers.
No. It's just, if they're currently licensed, we're just asking them to do CEs every year. Okay. Same with our electricians, just staying educated, staying on top of what's happening.
Okay.
And where do they report their completion of the CEUs to? Is that the plumbing board, or is there a state agency they report?
It'll go to
that
Lacey every year, and Lacey can explain probably the process better than me, but I believe it's in November approximately. The clerk's office sends out, is it a letter or whatever, to all the licensed plumbers for the city, advising them that their license for 2020 is expired and they need to renew. When they submit that new license to Lacey's office, they'll need to submit their CE hours, and I think there's some other items that they require. They have to have a bond, isn't it, Lacey? They have a bond that they have to submit, and Jessica will need to see all that before she can issue a license. And if they haven't got the hours done, they'll just have to quickly get their hours done, and then we'll license them.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is the city going to sponsor some classes similar to the electrical?
The plumbing board didn't say anything about that, but I'm sure when we have our next meeting, they will. Most of them are in Oklahoma and stuff where this is already required. So of the plumbers that are licensed locally, they're already doing the CE hours.
Oh, okay.
But I will definitely make that offer out to them
Yeah.
to see if we want to offer some CE hours. Again, most of them do it online.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions?
I don't have any.
I'm good.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I'll ask for a motion.
I move that the city approve the amendment to the licensure of plumbers starting in 2021.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next item on the agenda, consider adopting an ordinance amending the 2012 edition of the Uniform Plumbing Code.
Mayor, Atmos Energy came to the plumbing board, it's been several months ago, about this change, and the reason for the change is safety. In the gas, there is a chemical that deteriorates the copper and can cause the fittings to come loose or a hole to develop in the copper, and thus creating a gas leak in the house. So they asked us to adopt this to remove copper from plumbing of natural gas into houses. You primarily see it to appliances, short runs in houses is where this is seen. And I think as the mayor pointed out, pulling out appliances back and forth also creates movement of that copper, which is very brittle, and it also can break that. Technology is such now that there's a lot of better advanced types of fittings for those things, and it's just a safety factor. And they've asked that the commission approve an ordinance no longer allowing copper in a house. What that does mean is I'm not going to go out and inspect every house, but if you call a plumber or you have a natural gas leak or you get red tagged by the gas service and you want to get turned back on, it would require an inspection, and at that time you could have to change out the copper if you have any.
You know, Atmos had been enforcing
Yes.
in-house if an appliance was for
Right.
some time. So
Yes.
it's going to bring our code, it'd make it easier for
Yes.
for them and the
Right.
plumbers to
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah, because Atmos will
Safety
only
issues.
go to the appliance. They're not going to check everything else, so there was copper elsewhere, which is required of the city inspector.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Question?
I'm good.
Then I'll call for a motion.
I make a motion that the city approve the amendment to the plumbing code and not allow copper pipe to be used for natural gas piping in residential or commercial properties.
I second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
The next item, item D, consider the following traffic control proposals in the area surrounded by Pennsylvania Avenue, Oak Street, Park Boulevard, and Pinehurst. Number one, would place no parking signs within 30 feet of the approach of all stop signs. Place signs restricting parking to one side of the street on 2nd, 4th, 5th, and 6th from Parkhurst to Oak. Place a no parking sign on Oak east of Park Boulevard to restrict parking near the alley intersecting Oak. Place appropriately detailed low clearance signs near Oak and 6th on Oak and near Park Boulevard and Myrtle on Park Boulevard. Place stop signs following intersections to stop east-west traffic, Beach and 2nd, Beach and 4th, Beach and 5th, Beach and 6th, Pecan and 5th, Pecan and 6th. Place stop signs at the following intersections to stop southbound traffic, Parkhurst and 4th, Parkhurst and 5th, Parkhurst and 6th. Chief Harrison?
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's pretty much the whole meeting right here, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think one thing that's important to emphasize here is this is a citizen-led initiative. We did not go into the neighborhood and start suggesting this is a lot of work here, and we recognize that. It began with a couple of complaints. The complaints led to some observations, and as I worked with Tim Townley, our traffic safety officer, on this, we realized that this is something that probably needs to get a lot of eyes looking at it. We invited the citizens from this neighborhood to a meeting. We presented our first proposal at that meeting, and the citizens had a lot of things that they wanted to be added to it. So we added a number of things because what they pointed out was very reasonable and very needed. And I know at least one citizen from that neighborhood is in the audience. 2 citizens from the neighborhood are in the audience tonight that were at those meetings. So I guess that's probably what's most important to me, is to recognize that this is our community expressing their concerns and how they would like them to be addressed.
The no parking signs and the parking back from the corners, I can see the problems that you have there. All the stop sign up Parkhurst is an easy way to get from Penn Avenue to Park Boulevard.
Yes.
I can see making that a through street, but all the other ones throughout, the neighbors are really interested and willing to have all those intersections become controlled intersections.
Yes, they saw this and they said, well, that looks good, but then there's a whole bunch of other things that you guys really ought to look at. And so that led into the parking, that led into some other things. And so the natural traffic pattern there, it's pretty easy to see the north-south flow for those side streets. As you said, leaving Parkhurst as a through street. The other thing that we found, Kelly gave me the clicker. I don't know if I know how to use it, but what's going to happen if I click it? Okay, here we go. As you look through this, there's a number of driver obstructions. This one is a sight triangle issue that we will address with the resident and get it going. I've already talked with Mike Passeur about that. But this one is this just illustrates how close these signs marking the overpass are, and how far away they are from the main drags where those trucks are going to be coming from. And it's just an avoidable problem. This is, again, as residents observed a tractor trailer backing up on Park Boulevard, backing up to Oak and turning around on Oak, and we can all imagine what a train wreck that must be. So when the citizen pointed that out, I said, boy, that has to be fixed. And so we got that alongside of it. But what I really want to show is, again, this is a sight triangle issue. We've fixed some other sight triangle issues here in the past, so we need to, some more have cropped up that we need to work on, literally. Again, some of these are sight triangle issues, but some of these, like this one here, limited visibility on Parkhurst, limited visibility at 5th and Pecan. There's nothing we can do with this unless we bring a dozer in, and that's probably not favorable to the property owner, nor would I want to do that to someone that's coming at it from the other direction. So a number of these are vision issues that the residents wanted addressed as well. So we are working on the site triangle issues, but the stop signs, creating a predictable flow of traffic. It should actually move traffic through there a little more efficiently, but more safely. And I had a number of complaints on where we're proposing the stop signs. Those were specifically requested. I think that's what really started the whole project, was the desire to have stop signs there so that people can move through that area one way or another without being involved in a collision.
Yeah, because that neighborhood is isolated. Well, Parkhurst is great if you're going to the lumberyard and you want to bypass downtown. You can cut Parkhurst over to Park Boulevard, or particularly if you live on the south side, you can go Parkhurst, cross Penn. So that's a pretty direct route. The neighborhood seems pretty isolated, and we're putting a lot of stop signs in there, and it seemed, for me, with the low traffic count of cars, that it would be more of a nuisance. But if the neighbors are interested in that amount of control, then, because one thing with all the new signs, isn't there an expiration date on reflectivity that we have to watch and then start replacing? Because it's more than just an initial cost, but it's an ongoing cost for the signs.
All the signs of HIP,
I can't hear you.
All
I'm
the
sorry.
signs are high-intensity prismatic signs. And what's the expiration on those? Do you remember? But there is a standard rotation date.
I mean, it's at least 10 years.
So about a 10-year expiration. I'm sure that's impacted by the sun, where it sits in relation to the sun. One thing that I learned through this process that I wasn't aware of, it's just those things that happen incidental to other things that are going on in a neighborhood. And what never occurred to me was we have a number of events in the park. Yeah. I think I talked to Barb, and I think they have like 8 or so actual organized runs where people, 5Ks, I should say. Mm-hmm. And so that creates a real parking burden. And then you have all the events surrounding Neowalla in the park create a parking burden. You have Zooloween and all the different events in the zoo. You have the Mighty Mites or Pee Wee football. And these things were brought up. And so as the citizens are expressing this to me, I thought, I didn't know that. I didn't realize it impacted you guys like that, the college football games. So I went up there at those times, and I can understand the motivation that the neighbors have for the stop signs and the parking. And I think the stop signs and the parking go hand in hand because of all the visibility problems that are created with all the parking and the stop signs that made the residents feel more comfortable, I think, is probably the motivating factor for this.
Okay.
And this is a long, we've been working on this since September, October. Do you guys remember? It's about that time frame. So it's something that's been drawn out. I was able to go up there during the football season for ICC and check out the parking, and also during Neowalla during the day, and the Pee Wee football as well, and see what they're dealing with. And so that certainly made me a little more sympathetic and raised this up on the priority levels for us. And as you say, it's not necessarily a high traffic area, but there are some safety issues there, and the citizens have stepped forward and expressed to me that they would like them addressed.
During those times of activity, depending on which way you approach the park, it becomes obvious that that is a prime parking area.
It becomes that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And, the 4th of July, I mean, as we sit here and talk, more things are popping into my head. We'll probably be up to about once a month or more if we keep at it, that there's a lot of congestion in that area.
There is. Questions, Chief?
I have none.
I have none. I think it's thoroughly
except-
researched. And
Except for perhaps do any of the citizens that are here wish to speak to the issue? No?
I think parking is just mainly,
Would you like to come up and talk into the microphone, ma'am?
not really.
They're going to tell you to do that if you don't.
And also identify yourself.
I'm Carrie Augusto. I live at 320 East Beach. And I think the Pecan, or Second and, no, it's not Second, it's Sixth and Beach. That street in particular is pretty narrow, and we had some residents not being able to back out without, being right on top of another neighbor's car, right around there. And so that was the one-sided, just parking on one side, especially on those narrow streets.
Yeah, there are a lot of narrow streets in that residential district.
Yeah, and then on Beach itself, like, a lot of families, a lot of little kids running around playing, and it's just a thoroughfare that's straight shot through from Beach to, from Park to Penn. And so slowing that traffic down along that way was a priority of mine in particular.
Okay.
As far as
Thank
addressing
you,
the,
Carrie.
thank you.
sorry, as far as addressing the width of the street, you guys probably recall that every time this comes up, I bring this ordinance up, and it's 102-116, and it just specifically gives you the authority to go in and make parking decisions on streets less than 26 feet. Of course, you're not limited to that, but it specifically points that out. And
Right.
then, of course, you have reviewed the NACTO recommendations before as well, because I always bring those up in these situations too. So we're just following right along with best practices here, or doing our best to follow best practices.
And most times, even on a narrow street, there's not enough traffic parked there that would restrict flow through it. But during those special events,
Yes.
how are you going to navigate emergency vehicle or the congestion like Carrie mentioned with the children playing, poor visibility, crossing the street, and somebody getting injured, so, okay. If there's no further questions, then I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, we have 3 motions here. Do we want to make them one at a time?
Yes.
I move that the city staff be authorized to do the following in the area surrounded by Pennsylvania Avenue, Oak Street, Park Boulevard, and Parkhurst. Place no parking signs within 30 feet of the approach of all stop signs in the area, to place signs restricting parking to one side of the street on 2nd, 4th, 5th, and 6th from Parkhurst to Oak, and place a no parking sign on Oak east of Park Boulevard to restrict parking near the alley intersecting Oak at that location.
Motion 1. Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Motion 2.
I move the city staff be authorized to place appropriately detailed low-clearance signs near Oak and 6th on Oak and near Park Boulevard and Myrtle on Park Boulevard.
I second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Motion 3.
I move that stop signs be placed at the following intersections to stop east-west traffic: Beach and 2nd, Beach and 4th, Beach and 5th, Beach and 6th, Pecan and 5th, Pecan and 6th, and that stop signs be placed at the following intersections to stop southbound traffic: Parkhurst and 4th, Parkhurst and 5th, Parkhurst and 6th.
I second.
A motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, citizens, for bringing this forward and addressing concerns that you had, and that we were able to accommodate that.
Hey, I just appreciate being invited to do that. So when we got the email, it was just nice to be a part of that discussion, so thank you guys.
Okay.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being here.
Next item is discussion. Discuss allowing the sale of alcoholic beverages on Sunday. Kelly and I were visiting, and it's been maybe over a year ago. A business owner was discussing this change of statute that was allowing Sunday sales of alcoholic beverages, and mentioned that with our location so close to the state line that they felt we were losing tax dollars and business to Oklahoma, and we're wondering about that. And I think, Kelly, you mentioned somebody had brought that up to you also. So when we were discussing, we thought, bring it up for discussion tonight and see what the commission felt, if we want to wait for to be contacted by retailers to address the issue, or just how the commission would desire to proceed. So,
I'm assuming the state of Kansas has some kind of statutes regulating this already. Is that right?
Jeff,
So so that would define the minimum standard perhaps for alcoholic beverage sales on Sundays. Is that
Yeah.
right?
can you explain?
This is a very confusing area. Statutes are a cake. They get amended every year. They get more confusing every year because you define beer differently than cereal malt beverage. How many think cereal malt beverage is beer? Raise your hand. It's not. By statute, it's not.
Yeah.
Cereal malt beverage is what I would call the flavored drinks, strawberry daiquiri or whatever.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Beer is defined as fermented hops and grains. And then you have alcoholic liquors, which is considered the strong stuff, but it also includes beer and cereal malt beverage. And there's different rules that apply to all of them, and it's very confusing. Right now, unless the city adopts an ordinance opening it up, retail liquor stores, your package stores, and I guess grocery stores now and convenience stores cannot sell on Sunday for, carry out. We're not talking about on-premises consumption. And the same for the beer sales. On-premises consumption is not allowed on Sunday. There's an exception. If you're a drinking establishment, that's a special type of license. As you recall, back in, the 80s or the 90s, the county voted countywide on liquor by the drink, and it passed. So that allowed drinking establishments in Montgomery County, and they can serve liquor by the drink. Basically, they're not restricted. They can do it on Sundays. So that's where we are now. If the motion of the commission was adopted to open for Sunday sales for liquor stores or Walmarts, convenience stores, grocery stores to sell alcohol, that could be done. The ordinance is passed, it's published. There's a 60-day protest period. I think it requires 5% of the voters who voted at the last presidential election. And if such a protest was presented, then it would have to go to a vote, citywide vote. So that's it in a nutshell. It's confusing even for me to talk about it. I hope I said it right.
And Copperville does allow Sunday sales.
So it would probably be better to have the establishments bring to us what they want than us trying to create a blanket document that would maybe fit their need or maybe not. So if it was actually something that the businesses desired, they would present a letter to the commission to address it, and then we could work.
It's a
Yeah.
political issue, I'm
Yeah.
sure. I've heard through the grapevine, not firsthand, that like your traditional retail liquor store likes it the way it is, but perhaps the grocery stores want to open it up because they're open anyway on Sundays. So why not be able to sell it? just another day of work for the retail liquor store owners.
Yeah.
So, you're going to get different points of view like that, and that's kind of what I've heard. And
So let them be the driving force behind this. If they feel that this is something that they would like to see pushed forward, then let them bring it to us.
or the citizens.
The citizens.
Citizens
Yeah.
say they may see this broadcast and say, I'm tired of driving to Coffeyville or Oklahoma on Sunday to get a six-pack of beer to watch the Chiefs. I forgot to get it Saturday night, whatever. It could come from any source.
Okay.
If this was a city like, say, Wichita, that has very high tourism, you would probably want to do it to accommodate that influx of people for that reason, and I don't know where we are on that.
Okay,
Could talk about bed taxes later.
okay.
Well, the way the Chiefs play in the fourth quarter, I'm not sure a six-pack would be enough. Just kidding.
Well, if you drank to forget the game, you'd miss the exciting part.
That's true.
So,
So Coffeyville has an ordinance of this nature on their books right now.
Yeah,
So do any of the other cities in Montgomery County also have this type of ordinance?
Deering does, but
Deering
their
does.
liquor store closed. It's for sale.
Well, can we take a look at those two ordinances?
Well, the ordinance, there's no, ordinance has to be, there's no discretion on the ordinance. It's set in stone by the statute.
Oh, the state is, so we're actually, the ordinance is to opt out. Is that what you're saying?
Right now, state statute doesn't permit those sales on Sundays. If you adopt the ordinance, state statute tells you you're allowed basically on Sundays between 12 noon and I think it's 8 p.m. or something like that.
Okay.
It's right in the state statute. Now, I think once you adopt it and you opt out and it's authorized, a city can always adopt an ordinance with more restrictions than the state has. But you can't lessen the restrictions the state has.
Yeah. That's
So if you adopt the ordinance and allow it from noon to 8 p.m., you could say we're going to narrow that narrow the window to noon to 6 p.m. But opting out is step one, and step two would be if you wanted to impose additional restrictions.
Okay.
It'd be up to that business to determine if they wanted to sell on Sunday, right?
Sure,
It
they
just
wouldn't
makes
have
it
to.
optional for them.
yeah. Okay. So we'll just wait till the need is brought to us. Okay.
Sounds fine to me.
Fine with me.
Next item on the agenda is reports. Item A, report on 223 West Main Street.
Mayor, there's nothing really to report other than we are having a phone conference tomorrow with Mr. Morrison and Pool Fire. That's the only thing I have to report, working on the issues.
No additional information or anything from,
I have not received anything from him, Mayor.
I think the last thing we got was today, was an email.
Yeah, that was just an update on.
Just an update.
The last meeting that we had with them and going over the different issues that led to this conference call
Okay.
that's going to happen tomorrow.
next item on the agenda is KDOT grant update.
I'll give you the bad news first. The one piece of the access management grant that was applied for previously, this piece with that sweeping right turn lane was not awarded. We heard through our engineer, we have not received the letter yet notifying us of that.
That's 10th and Main.
Yes, with the sweeping right turn lane. Now, this piece, which actually goes over to 8th Street and looks more like this, we were previously awarded that, and you guys did the agreement on November 14th for that project. It was under a different funding source with KDOT. It was under the geometric improvement portion, and it was funded. The alley, the long alley that was requested from Dairy Queen to Mikey's.
Right.
Under access management, we have heard through the engineer also that it was not approved, but we have not gotten the official letter. So that's the update on that one. And then KDOT, we did get a runway remarking of 1735 awarded for FY 2021. Of course, that's on the state budget year, which they start on July 1st rather than January. The city's, let's see, $235,000 was the total, and looks like city share, what, $22,750 or something like that. So it's going to be a good project. So that's the update on the KDOT grants. At your next meeting on the 27th, regular meeting, Sean Turner will be here and can report in more depth on some of our projects.
Yeah, on the 27th, then one thing we'll want him to address, we need to start looking at options for the half a block on Main Street. So we
Yes.
can, that needs to go with the grant. What were
Yeah,
we doing
and
in Main?
actually I talked to Mike Conway about that today, because we may want to, you're talking about over there in front of Walgreens, this
Right.
piece, and it is in very poor condition. We might see if there's an opportunity to piggyback on this project, and maybe just, it would be city funded, but maybe pick up that piece because it is in poor condition.
Yeah, we really, it has to go together. The interruption to do the West Main grant that's on our right.
Right.
And not do that half a block.
Right,
And then come
doesn't
back
make
in
any
another
sense.
contract to fill that in.
No, I agree,
Yeah.
and we could see what we can do to work that out, maybe
Yeah.
work out something with the contractor as a separate deal to do those at the same time.
Yeah, and.
Because you'll have bid prices at that time for the other piece, so.
Right. On the alley,
Mhm.
I know with the access management plan, I think it had some additional requirements that the alley had to be made wider. And
Yes,
so-
and that was one of, I emailed Sean about that to see why we didn't get that one. I asked him to ask specifically, and he said that a concern of theirs was the cost of right-of-way acquisition. So that was a factor in their decision, and that's a pretty long stretch.
Yeah, well, I went through the length of the alley a few weeks ago, and we're gonna need to do something. Either maybe look at breaking it down into smaller projects, but now that it's not going to be considered access management plan, even though it was marked on their diagram, if we use our own money, can we make it just as wide as it is, and then it'd be cheaper and get it going, because it's really in poor condition.
Okay. I'll get with
I
you
think
on,
the thought of access management plan, it's that those businesses will divert from using the highway to use the alley as circulation. But I don't think that's really going to happen. But there's enough traffic in the alley that it just continues to deteriorate, and it's going to create hazards for our vehicles that maybe by not getting it, we can go a different route and be cheaper for us, or at least start addressing the problem in a series that's manageable for the city. So
Okay, we'll
kind of
review
make
that.
some notes, and we
Yeah.
can bring that up to
Yep, got it.
Sean. Okay. And Lacey, the January 2020 sales tax report.
Yes, so these would have been sales from November of 2019. They were really pretty consistent over the 10-year history. I think January 2020 came in top 3. We were 1.9% down from January of last year.
And January of last year was the best year out of the last 10.
Out of the 10, yep. Yep. Any specific questions on this?
Yeah. It's really hard to look at month-to-month performance because of it really wasn't money from January, it was money from
November.
December or November.
It's from November.
Okay. So for the recap of 2019 on sales tax revenue, we were, is this correct, 4% greater than we were in 2018? Our receipts overall for the year?
I don't have December's with me.
Well, I think he's
Yeah, he's
Not-
looking at the
no,
total for the year.
Total for the year.
That
Yeah.
4.8 is,
Right
if
here.
you annualized the January collections, it would be projected 4.8% over our budget, which is the $1,935,000.
He's talking about the
I think he's talking
The
about.
projected percent over budget, is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, it's hard since
Oh, that
since
4%.
month to month.
That's a year over year.
Right.
Yes.
So month to month, it's hard to tell because it's not actually a month, but
Your
For
month
our
to month is
interest-
going to be that it'll be month prior, yes.
But what we're concerned in our budget is we've set a factor of how much sales tax revenue we're going to receive for the year. So if you look at the bottom line of the total, the $2,023,851,
So you're really looking at that 8.7% is the percentage of our budgeted
No.
amount that's collected. Is
forget
what,
forget percents, just total revenue, sales tax revenue in our
For
in our budget-
2019.
Right, in our 2019 budget, when we did our budget, we estimated a projection for what we're going to receive in sales tax.
right,
And what we're really concerned with is at the end of the year that we get that much money in sales tax.
right.
So for 2019, it looks like we received 4% more sales tax for the year than we did in 2018.
Correct.
So overall, we finished good.
Yes, yes.
We're being conservative on what we estimate the sales tax is going to generate.
Right, so I mean, for example, in 2019, we budgeted $1,931,100. We collected, our actual collections were the 2.023 million. And we, even at budget time, we predicted that we would surpass our budgeted amount, yet for 2020, I've only budgeted the 1.935
Good.
million. So yes, I'm conservative in my projections and my budgeting.
Yeah. So then that extra sales tax just goes into our reserve, so
Right,
we're building yeah. The month to month, it's really hard to get a picture on where we're going to end up, but the year end is what we're really needing to watch, that we at least make our projection, and any extra then helps us in the coming year.
right.
Yeah. It look,
It
I
looks
was-
like a good report to me.
Yeah.
It looks
Yeah.
like it's very favorable.
my questions kind of got off direct and was confusing at first. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Lacey.
Lacey.
And you had
The fourth quarter.
the fourth quarter
Treasurer's report.
treasurer's report.
Yes.
Okay.
I will just quickly go through the funds that are in the red are all pending disbursement or reimbursements. The water treatment plant upgrade, that one is due for another disbursement request, so that's coming up on my calendar here pretty soon. Fund 22 is a newly created fund. It's the Street Capital Projects Reserve Fund. And this will just help us in keeping our accounting cleaner and knowing what dollars we have reserved for street projects in particular. That one has a small negative balance, and that's just it's design or inspection design fees for that 75,160 to Peter Pan project. So we've just incurred a little bit of expenses there, but I haven't funded it with the city money yet, the city cost portion of it, but that's a grant one.
And the Economic Development Transportation Fund, the disbursement there, was that on one of our street projects? It's line 6.
Yes.
Would that have been from Chestnut and Oak on 10th? Would that have been that?
10th Street would have been on Fund 92.
Okay.
The
Oh, okay,
10th
that's right,
Street,
that's
we-
right.
we
It was
budgeted
from the
$250,000.
leftover bond money.
Mhm.
Yep.
But that's other overlay projects. I'd have to go back to see exactly what all makes up.
Okay.
So is the nature of Fund 22 to identify encumbered funds from something else and move it in there rather than leave it in, let's say, commingled in the Fund number 6, Economic Development / Transportation?
So my goal with that fund is street projects, for example, are funded out of multiple different funds. You know, we may have some general fund money, some economic development and transportation money, special use sales tax, that's all being pulled together to use for a project. And the accounting for that gets really messy when you've got an invoice and now I have to code it to 3 different funds and track that that's all for the same project. So instead, you know, the 0.25% that's supposed to be dedicated to streets coming out of the special use sales tax will just be transferred to a street reserve fund. And it just becomes so much easier to track it.
And it really makes sense then.
Yeah.
Because
I
you have a
think so.
single transaction instead of trying to match 20 transactions for 20 separate
Yes.
expenditures. Yeah.
That's my goal.
Okay.
The Peter Pan Geometric Fund 96 is the other fund in the red, and that is the project that we have going on out on Peter Pan that'll be reimbursed by Labette and the county.
Okay, so the last extension just was
the
an
last
addition
extension.
of that,
Mhm.
too. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Other than that, I mean, David and I have been working hard to clean up our funds and close funds that are no longer needed, that have, you know, been overfunded years and years ago, and then the money just has been left in that fund. So we've transferred it back to its original funding source and tried to close things up so that there's not so many funds. And then the goal going forward would be to hopefully get a project accounting module in our software where we can track projects within the broad funds. So we're not going to have not every project or grant that we get will require us to establish a new fund. It'll just be accounted for within a broad project fund.
Okay.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Thank you. That really clears things up.
Good.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lacey.
Thank you, Lacey.
How long have we been working?
Years.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Item E, the 2020 census update, complete count committee training.
Tomorrow after First Friday at 9:30, representative from the Census Bureau will be here and provide the training. It'll be about 90 minutes long, and anybody's invited to attend. I've notified the complete count committee, and we will film that so that those that cannot attend can watch it.
Good.
And so that is going on. And then also we will have a representative from the Census Bureau here on March 6th who will actually do a presentation as part of First Friday. So I wanted to let you know about that.
Okay. Any questions?
I have none.
I have none.
Thank you.
Item
Kelly.
F, demonstration of the beta dashboard for the community-based strategic plan.
Let me, hopefully it will look here.
Let's see, with paper, Kelly, we don't have this
I
problem.
know. Trying to get PowerPoint to close.
Yeah, but you don't have a pretty picture like that.
Yeah, but I got that pretty picture.
Okay.
I like that picture.
So what this is the, that report that we gave out at the retreat. And it had the different key initiatives and action steps and all of that. This is actually based on that. And it's got the different key initiatives. And what you can do is you can drill down to each one of these. So like economic development, it shows 33%. And it'll show the last update. So our last update on that was what we did at the planning session. So I put that information in. And then you have all the different pieces that go into that. And you can see, you know, what percentage of completion each one of these is in. And so let's see. So like the recreational business. So then, you know, I have the update about the indoor firing range because that's a recreational business on that one. And then you can also go up here and go into those. You don't have to go back to that home page, and it gives you each action and initiative that's underneath the major headings. And then you can drill down into those to see, you know, where that is at. So I just kind of want to, we haven't launched this yet. It's just a beta. We've been working hard trying to get the information in to get it ready to launch. But this is just kind of a sample of how it would work. This is would be public facing.
Yeah.
And then when we update our plan, then I have to sync this, and then like in the night, then it'll sync to the new data, and then match it up. So it's just I just wanted you guys to see it so that you can see what it looked like. If you
Easy
don't
to
like,
navigate through, and yeah.
yeah, it's pretty simple. If you don't like the pictures, I can change them out. I pulled them out of some that I had, and so that's basically what that is. I just thought you might want to see it. I did go over this with the SPAC committee, and I gave them an update where we are, because that was one of the things that we were supposed to do as part of the strategic planning process, and actually Dean participated in that because he was a SPAC member, and they seem to like this as well.
That's right.
They like the visual. So that's what that is. Pretty simple. So
The next item on the agenda are the city board minutes. Any questions from any of those?
I have none.
I have none.
Okay, city manager comments? Kelly?
yeah, I have just a few things. I was gonna have Mike and David give you guys an update of where we're at on the steam line repair.
Okay.
Design Mechanical was here Tuesday and Wednesday. They removed all the casing off the steam line and any insulation that was left over. And there's another contractor that will come in and put on the insulation that is actually made for underground steam lines. And I'm hoping they're here tomorrow or Monday. And then after that, we'll start backfilling and put the driveway back in.
Is the backfill a specific type of gravel, or is it, you know, river rock, or what is
No,
that?
it'll be small, clean gravel, so it'll flow in under that pipe.
I see.
Because I think Rick told me that pipe still has to move a little bit,
Yeah.
and you don't
imagine.
want it sitting on hard packed rock. So it will move a little bit.
And is part of the problem was water infiltration, so is there a drainage component to that backfills to keep the water out of
don't think there
the
is.
vicinity of
No.
the steam line?
I don't think there is,
No?
not that I've seen. I mean, it's just gravel.
Any more questions on that? Or
Do I?
do you guys have any more questions on that item, on the steam pipe?
There was no way to determine what happened or
No.
where the hole was. It
I
just
didn't- They pulled out
happened.
chunks of that casing, and I didn't see any holes.
Yeah.
No, I think it just failed. I mean, and from what they've told Mike and I, new technology, this new material they'll put on will alleviate that issue.
Okay.
And it's made to be in the
It's
ground.
made to be in the ground. It doesn't, I mean, they didn't say that this wasn't, but
Yeah.
yeah, this is the correct thing that should have been on the pipe.
And you're just looking at, what, a day to make repairs or longer?
I don't know exactly how long it'll take them. I'm sure a day at least,
Okay,
to go from the building to the
Yeah.
energy plant.
okay.
Problem, are you gonna have to shut the pipe down to apply it?
I don't think so.
Because that's gonna be slow as hot as that, what, 80 pounds
80 pound
pressure on
it.
steam. That's not 212 degrees.
Yeah.
That's higher than that.
Yeah, I specifically asked Rick, are we gonna be down? He said, nope, it applies with it on.
With the heat, I imagine.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know if that heat somehow
Seals it.
seals it as it's going on or what.
Okay,
Interesting.
great.
Interesting.
And then I also wanted to have David give you an update, when we had the flood in the basement before, and where we're at on getting the damage repaired.
Oh,
Basement flood, we have repaired all of the damage, other than we have some spot painting above the floor trim and maybe a little bit of mudding work to do there. And we do have somebody that can do that, but I can tell you, all the carpet, all of that rest of it has been repaired at this point, and it's vastly improved everything down there. So I imagine at some point Lacey will get that other part done. I mean, we have an agreement with somebody to get the rest of the mudding done on the walls, and then Rick Barnes will touch up paint.
And we did use the carpet square, so if we had some area we needed to replace it, we could easily fix it, so we did do that.
So I'm catching up here a little bit. The source of the flooding was solved so that can't happen again.
Well, it was a city, it's kind of a main line that runs right in front of the energy plant. It's actually exposed now. If you went and looked, you'll see the clamp the city put on it. That day, we had several water breaks in the neighborhood, and for some reason, that line failed right there, and that steam pipe's there, and that water, it's an 8-inch line, which is a tremendous amount of water, traveled along there and came in under the building and just it overwhelmed the sump pumps, came up the elevator shaft, and just began flooding the basement. Basically, we were fighting a losing battle till Terry's guys got the water shut off. I mean, we were not going to win that battle because you had 8-inch line pumping out water into the building.
Yep.
Maybe it's a 6-inch, but
Yeah,
it's a big
faster than
line.
you can remove.
It's an 8-inch line. A tremendous amount of water. There's just no way to overcome it till we got it shut off.
Okay, thank you.
And then on the wayfinding signs, we have a meeting with a subcommittee with Lori Kelly to work on that. We talked about that in a retreat as well. We're going to do that crowd spring contest, so we're going to set up some parameters for that. That's what we did when we did our website and our city logo. And we're wanting to set a $1,000 prize on that. What you do is you set an amount for a prize, you put out the scope of what you're looking for, and then these different artists submit different designs, and then whatever design is ultimately selected is the one that gets the prize. But it was a really good process when we did our logo and our website, and we got a really good product out of it that relatively cheaply, and you get all the files and everything with that. We have the preliminary plan that Doug Pickert did, but it kind of needs a little bit of, finalization before we can go to get a design and then work on on trying to figure out how to get those signs funded. He had a tremendous price for those, and we're thinking we can get those at a much lesser price than that. And so that's kind of where we're at on that. So we have that set up for later in the month, so I can report back on that. And then I'll be coming to you probably at the next meeting about with this flood program that we're doing. Part of that is you have to identify open areas, and they put certain restrictions on those. We have an area over west of sanitation, and it's just barely, one piece of it is in the floodplain, so we want to look at actually subdividing that out so there's not restrictions on the rest of that parcel in case we want to utilize it, and it wouldn't be tied up with those restrictions. So we're going to look at doing that and separating that out. It's already platted, so I don't think it'll be really difficult. We just need to make sure with the surveyor that we understand where that flood line is versus where the lot lines are to make sure that, you know, we do exclude what we need to separate that out. So have that going on.
And that was that flood program that we discussed last
Yes, before it gets,
meeting.
before
Right.
it gets completely implemented, we need to get this lot separated so it's not restricted. You know, the recreational areas is not an issue, but this was an area we talked about
Right.
potentially maybe moving the rest of Public Works down there or doing some other things. And the sanitation lot, actually, the most of it is in the floodplain. So we would be limited on what we could do with that particular lot. So we really may need that at a lot if we want to do any structures or anything. So just looking forward, I just think it would be good to do that now and get that resolved. So we're going to work on that too.
The program, once we qualify or meet the requirements, if I remember from what we talked before, it gave a discount to the people with insurance. It was significant, wasn't it?
Mayor, it can be significant. Tulsa is in the CRS program, and the highest you can get, it's a 1 to 10, 1 being the best, and it's a 45% discount on the flood insurance. That's doing all the series of things. I'm currently working on that to get as much as what we can get done, and when the CRS lady comes to look at the work that we've done, and she'll go through it, and she'll be able to tell me what the percentage. Pretty confident we'll be at a 10%, but we could be higher. Just depends how much we get done and can do at this point. You can always, it goes for a year, and then if we decide there's more things that we can do to increase that, we can then add it the next year and keep building on that increase of discount. But as Kelly says, it comes with restrictions.
Right.
In the floodplain, once this goes into place, if your house is there, you have to come to the facility to get a building permit no matter what you do. And the only reason is not to stop people, or we're just trying to make sure they're not impeding the flow of the water.
Right.
So, yes, it's a process they will go to, and we will really educate the people, but we have to manage the floodplain, and it'll just be a lot more of that. So it is going to be a process for the citizens.
And this is the lot I'm talking about, and you can see the flood plain just barely goes in there. But if we excluded this lot and the old alley right away, then we could have this other lot that wouldn't have the restrictions on it. So that's what we're looking at, just to give you an idea. We'll be bringing that back to you.
Good.
Neighborhood revitalization zone, I met with the county, and they signed the interlocal agreement. I talked to Rusty actually last week, and I talked to him again today. He had some questions, and I sent him some maps and filled him in on answering his questions. I believe he's going to try to run it by them on their meeting on the 10th, which I will be gone, but I told him if they have any issues for them, I asked them if they would table it, and I would answer those in person if they have any concerns. And so, and then I talked to at the college, Dr. Knox, and he said that their February agenda was full, but we're going to get on the March agenda. So he's going to wait and give me a date because it's scheduled to be during spring break, so he thinks they'll modify it. So he's supposed to be getting back with me on what date they're going to reschedule that March meeting. And then once that's done,
Okay.
we'll send it to the Attorney General for final approval, and hopefully everybody will be
Yeah.
okay with it. So that's where we're at on that.
And it's good for 10 years, and then we have to renew it, is that?
Yeah, this is
all
good
right?
through December 31st, 2030. So I want it to
Okay.
end at the end of the year, because the other one's kind of
Right.
in mid-year, and I think it's just cleaner if they end at the end of the year, so.
So right now, the plans have expired, and there's no,
Mhm. They expired in 2018.
yeah, there's no,
No incentives for them until we can get this
yeah,
done.
okay.
So I think it'll be really helpful.
Yeah, well,
And we have the data to show that those neighborhoods are needed to be revitalized. And it
Right.
fits our beautification in our strategic plan, what we're supposed to be working on too. So, and I explained that to Rusty too, that this is part of our strategic plan as well.
good,
Initiative.
okay.
On the 911 consolidation, I've talked to all three of you on that, so at this point, it's whatever you gentlemen want to do. If you want to write a letter to meet with the other governing bodies, I think staff's done all that we can do at our level.
Okay,
So, just wanted to let you know on that. So, I think that's
Yeah.
all I got.
okay. Commissioner comments?
I have none.
I have none.
Okay. We got, no public, okay, great. Next item then will be executive session. First executive session, I move that we recess for an executive session for discussion of an employee resignation pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception, KSA 754319B1. The open meeting will resume at, how
I
long?
think probably 10 minutes would be plenty.
Resume at 7 o'clock. It's a little short, but
It's up to you. Whatever you think.
7 o'clock in
75.
You might go 7:05, that's just to be
Okay.
safe. in case you have
the
questions.
open meeting will resume at 7:05 PM in the Veterans Room of Memorial Hall. Do I have a second?
Who will
Second.
be attending? No one has specified who will be attending in your motion.
Oh, yeah.
Myself and the city attorney.
Yeah, and Commissioner.
Okay, second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, we're back in session. No action is taken from the executive session. And next item is another executive session. I move that we recess for an executive session for review and discussion of city manager applications pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception, KSA 754319B1. The open meeting will resume at, shall we say, 7:30? That'd be about 25 minutes.
Sounds great.
The open meeting will resume at 7:30 in the Veterans Room of Memorial Hall. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We're back in session. No action taken from executive session. So at this time, I'll entertain a motion on adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
7:30. I told them it's at 7:30.
Oh.
I said.